selection. And right now, I am totally floored by the performance of our under 18 team. And Barry, your role there, and I wonder if you can talk a little bit about your role during that competition, and we can begin to talk about the way the game is played today because the under 18 Canadian team has, I believe, reached a level of play that I've always thought was only imaginable. Barry, go ahead.
Yeah, with this group, Wally, I don't have interaction with, so I'd only be guessing as to what the whys of it. I think that some of the staff have been through the process before, so obviously learning what short term is all about. All of them in their roles in the CHL go through playoff preparation and that, so that's similar to short term. The players have all been through branch programs. A lot of them run good programs, so the kids are ready to take the next steps. I know in doing the under 17, the coaches for the World Junior teams the past few years have made comments about how well prepared the kids are coming up, how mature they are, how they're ready to get themselves prepared for short term. And I think it starts branch level and then under 17, under 18. But I had the opportunity. I went to Finland, I don't know, 10 years ago, give or take, and had the opportunity to work with 4 guys from Finland that each run clubs. And one I became particularly friends with, and he's actually over. He's the manager for the under 18 Finnish team. So we were chatting yesterday just about his team, how well they've done. And then he was talking about Team Canada, and he mentioned the same thing as you did, Wally, that he hasn't seen a team that strong and that good for a long time. Just how well they are, they play together, the skill set that they have. The biggest thing that he said different from his team to Canadian teams the last few years is the Europeans and Scandinavians have caught up to us in the D zone and in the neutral zone, but where he feels Canada's strength is now is 15 feet in front of the net and all the way down to the wall. He feels that we do things with the puck and using the north, south, east, west routes to get pucks to the net, that we've really become better in the last 3 to 5 years, in his opinion anyways, and that's what the market difference is. So I don't know what they're doing off ice, but on ice, I think we're all seeing it. They're a very skilled team.
Barry, I'm just wanted to mention watching the under 18 boys camp. I was at the first practice. I have never seen more productive tactical drills in my life. They were stuff I imagined. Triple drive attack with a little depth hitting the wide winger to score goals, and they've done it in this competition. When I watched the under 17, the female camp under 18, they worked on defense. And Howie did outstanding skating work on defensive skating, defensive play. Every drill began with a defensive transition to offense, but the primary focus was defense. I felt the team was far more capable offensively and quite frankly, didn't need to work on defense anymore. And exactly what you've said. During the competition at this year's Worlds, I felt our team struggled in the first part of the competition, the women's national 18 team. And I was it didn't surprise me because they were very gifted, the most skilled group I've seen at practice. And eventually they did get it together. They had created a culture, and the team building that they did, we had Howie Draper on, and that session was outstanding. So you can still win building a culture, teaching defense and focusing on it. But now I think the pendulum shifting in Canada. I believe that the saying used to be the best the best offense is a good defense. I'm saying if you want, I think right now the best defense is a good offense. You got the puck all the time. So I completely flipped my cerebral coin on how I would approach the game because I'm sorry, but we were responsible back in my era, having to play the Soviets, to overemphasize playing defense to the point where we've forgotten about how good we are. And the boys are demonstrating it today. So that's just my take from the competition. I'm looking forward to the games. I watched last night and just was totally impressed. But to me, the game is still got a ways to go to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hockey. I had this conversation with Dean Seymour, who's a skills coach with Hockey Canada. And Barry, he mentioned a speaker at the Alberta conference. I believe he had an Italian last name that talked about the forwards being able to play defensively. And I don't know if you're aware of who it was, but he just felt when he had the under 17 camp, I watched him run a skills session with 6 other skills coaches. At one end, the forwards worked on their tactical skill and individual skill. On the other end, the defense worked. And what I said to him is what you need to do is repeat the session, but have the forwards do what the defense did and the defense do what the forwards did. Because the game is no longer 2-3 hockey. It's just becoming so interchangeable that we've got to overlap in how we develop them. We overlapping in team play. It's a concept in soccer that's often used, but I just thought I would relate to that. Any comments from your experience with the Alberta program on that, Barry?
Yeah, and again, it's the players that we get, Wally. Let's not forget, like whether it's a male or female side, the majority of them have been coached, the old style, like you're suggesting, and not interchangeable. Where coaches have gotten a lot better is allowing defensemen to join the rush, be part of things. And we have this year with our Canada Winter Games group, we have probably 9 kids on the back end that could all make our team. So we're in a tough spot. We got too many really, really good defensemen, and we have good forwards. We have good depth up there as well. So what do? We have a couple kids that most certainly could play forward as well. Like they get the puck and they run with it. And that's to an extent where the coaches have allowed them to do it forever because they're good and they're allowed to win. And that's not what you say 1-5 coaching. That's basically I want to win, so I'm going to let my horse go every time he ends up getting the puck. I think from a cognitive standpoint, we couldn't make a switch in a short-term tournament with that age group of kids. I think we could try, and some would end up getting it. And we do. Obviously, when you take a look at an offensive zone, set or play, you're going to have switching between the forwards and defensemen. You're always going to have somebody that has to end up being responsible and being back. Whether you want to call it F3 or it's a scissor play coming back or whatever it is. Lots of teams now are starting to do what a lot of NHL teams do is they run their third forward really high, even sometimes outside the blue line, so everybody forgets about them and suddenly they jump in, or a weak side D does. So there's lots of that sort of stuff. I've only seen it once in the years that I've done what I do at an under 17 event. It was the Americans, and it was in Fort St. John, Dawson Creek. So that would have been probably 4 years ago. That team was a 5-player team. It wasn't a traditional team. And when I talked to the coaching staff that was there and asked them how they had done it, they have those kids for a whole year, so they can develop that style of play. B, they said they did 90% of their practices were small area games that were read and react, game situational, figure it out stuff. And they allowed the players to figure it out. They beat our team Red in the exhibition game 9-0. Because again, it's an exhibition game and it was our first game that we had played. We played them in the gold medal game, and sitting in the dressing room after the first period, I think we were down 4 goals, and the staff was sort of pulling their hair out, not knowing what to do. And again, from a mentorship standpoint, you don't want to tell people, but I said, how do you end up beating something like that? They're so strong in the offensive zone. So what I finally teased out of them is starting to stretch somebody, because as soon as you stretch, they have to honor it. So suddenly that 5-man unit breaks down. And we came back. We didn't win the game, but just that one little tweak and what we were doing made a difference in the way that they played the game. But they were phenomenal with that style of play.
Barry, before I turn it over to Peter, back in the Tarasov days, he made a comment about Guy Lafleur. He said, "Why would you bother to bring him back in your own zone? He would have left him out there, and the result would have been what you said. It would have created some space to move the puck to get to him." So, Peter, your hands up. Go ahead.
One of the things, and I mean, it goes along with what Barry was saying, but one of the things that I've talked about with teams is that sort of getting away from calling them defensemen or forwards, basically calling them attackers or defenders, and it all depends on whether they have the puck or not. So you have 5 attackers and you have 5 defenders, as opposed to 2 defensemen and 3 forwards. And you kind of and the more transition stuff you do, like the small area games that Barry's talking about, is just so important for them to be able to react to that transition of having the puck and not having the puck, and being an attacker and being a defender. So I think, again, we always try and come up with different terms and different approaches, if you will. So that was one that I used on numerous occasions to tell the players, okay, you're an attacker now, or you're a defender now. And sometimes that helps with the players to kind of see the transition in the game.
Thanks very much for that, Peter, because I think it's better to use that terminology than positional references. It really makes sense. And I recommend anybody watching the under-18 championships, I think the lads from Team Canada do that. The pressure they create immediately after a possession change, a shot, a rebound, a free puck, the other team getting it, it is relentless. Not only that, their capability in small space, like you said, Barry, below the hash marks in the offensive zone, the puck protection, and the short passes that they make. I'm just scratching my head over it. It's amazing. So, Tom,
when they go on the attack, they're a real wave, and I mean, obviously there's principles involved and depth to the attack, and not 5 players below the offensive goal line, but when they go on the attack, they're relentless. They're impressive to watch, certainly. At least in the game last night, they were.
Tom, go ahead.
Well, I've been doing this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 idea for a long time, and I think that the key is, I think, first of all, you don't abandon everything. You call them, this is your home position. So you are a left defenseman home position, but that you're not locked there. And you're playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hockey, and everybody in the ice has to be counting all the time. So if you've got 3 players in front of you, you recognize that you have to be back there, but you face off in your home position, and your home position is basically what you're probably dominant at, right? So you don't want Johnny Gaudreau playing right defense, as his home position. So, and I think that's a concept. Then you talk about shrinking the zone and swarming and, these kind of things, so that the players just read what they're doing. And like Peter just said, you don't have 5 behind the goal line, because, you've actually counted. So there's a lot of reading the game players have to. So we've got to coach them when you see this situation, and talk to them, where would you support best in this situation? So that they're thinking like that, and then do all these small area games to work on that.
Tom, you mentioned swarming. In last night's game, Peter, Canada was on PK, and when the Americans had not the Americans, the Swedes had the puck in the offensive zone. It was 2-on-2. They had 3. Canada had 3. They were relentless. They were overloading, outnumbering, no fear, not sitting back and playing a passive defense. And I think the ability to do that precedes your ability to play conventionally and safely.
Well, Wally, watch those practices, right?
Yeah.
They had 2 on the puck all the time in their practices. Not the second guy wasn't as passive as usual. If there was contact coming, possibility of contact, there were 2 on the puck right now. And, they'd win those battles. And then the third player was there ready to rotate in if the puck got rotated. And they really worked on that, outnumbering the opponents as much as they could, and those short passes and scissoring, and all of them could one time the puck. That was the thing. They really worked on passing across to the weak side and one timing it, like in almost all their drills. And I see that in the games here. And then they also worked the back of the net a lot. That they put the puck east to west behind the net, which really forces a D. That's a tough thing. You get your back turned. So those are things I've spent a lot of time in the rinks there watching all those Canada teams. And, the 17, 18, and U20 boys were all like that. And like you said, the girls worked on individual defensive skills an awful lot.
Tom, you videoed a lot of that. You shared a lot of the video of the practices. I'll tell you, there was something, Barry, of accessing those drills. When I watched the U18 first practice, like I said, I've never seen a more tactically purposeful practice on offensive play in my life. Engaging the defense in those plays, in the rushes. And it's precious video because from the get-go, they were doing the right things, in my mind, to prepare for the kind of game they're playing today. And obviously, the players are gifted. I am really impressed with the age level of the players and what they're doing on the ice. They're doing everything the NHL guys are doing together. And that's one of the complaints I have about the female game. We don't do much together. And watching that team play in terms of outnumbered possession and puck sharing is really exceptional. So I'm looking forward to the remaining games and to see what's going to happen and how it's going to unfold. But Barry, one of the comments I had from Jordan Fenton on the goalie from Irma, Alberta, and I was going to ask you the number of Alberta players on the team and how you feel the program of excellence is contributed to their play. And did you recognize those guys being that good when they played for you?
Well, again, it's always a crapshoot as you end up going through it, Wally, right? Even from, our Team Alberta team, we're asked every year at the events to send in our top players and recommendations. So we do that. And then the Hockey Canada scouting staff takes over. So who they end up selecting, sometimes we can scratch our heads about it because it's not always, the players we would have thought. And sometimes they turn out, sometimes they don't. But I guess, from a pride standpoint, there's always a good representation from the Hockey Alberta side of things. Typically, And I guess it depends on the year. Sometimes we have highly skilled players. Sometimes they're more the players that are just great 200-foot players and contribute that way. We always seem to have a player or two that ends up being one of the leaders on the team. And again, those are things when we end up doing our grassroots programs that we try to teach is that whole leadership component. How do we bring the best out of all of them? And it goes back to my story earlier on about making them all leaders that way. I last year with the World Juniors, like I think there was 8 or 9 kids from Alberta that were on the team. They're not all there now because of training camps and injuries and whatever else, but there'll still be a good smattering from that group as well that'll come on. So obviously, you know, minor hockey in Alberta does a good job, and I think we just help those kids along a little bit more with the short-term side of